Olá, pessoal! Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. Bem-vindos a mais uma gravação internacional. E hoje a entrevista é muito legal. Como vocês sabem, há um tempo atrás a gente fez o review do documentário Theaters of War e a gente está hoje com o produtor do documentário. Então, eu vou contar um pouquinho quem é o Dr. Roger Stahl, para vocês conhecerem um pouquinho do que ele faz. Então, o Roger Stahl é PhD pela Universidade Penn State, nos Estados Unidos, ele é norte-americano, e ele é atualmente professor de estudos de comunicação na Universidade da Georgia. Ele estuda retórica, mídia e cultura, e o seu trabalho se concentrou em entender a propaganda e as relações públicas relacionadas à violência estatal, conflito e segurança. Seu livro mais recente, Through the Crosshairs, War, Visual Culture and the Weaponized Gaze, de 2018, traça a história da câmera pela mira de uma arma e examina as maneiras pelas quais o público tem sido cada vez mais convidado a imaginar a guerra através desse olhar da arma. Seu livro anterior, Militainment, Inc., de 2010, mapeia o complexo militar de entretenimento e eu amei esse nome. O Dr. Stahl publicou artigos em várias revistas acadêmicas, como The Quarterly Journal of Speech, Rhetoric and Public Affairs, Critical Studies in Media Communication, e para o público em geral, ele produziu vários documentários, incluindo Militainment Inc., de 2007, Returning Fire, de 2011, Through the Crosshairs, de 2018, e o mais recente, do ano passado, 2022, é Theaters of War, que vocês nos viram comentando. E o trabalho dele também já foi apresentado na mídia tradicional, como a NPR, The Guardian e Al Jazeera. Então, sem mais delongas, vou trazer aqui o nosso entrevistado. Hello, Dr. Stahl.
It's good to be with you, Thais.
Thank you so much for accepting this interview. We could watch Theaters of War through Vimeo in Brazil. I'm living in Canada now, and I could only watch it when I arrived in Canada because I'm a student, and then I got it through the university.
I see. Yeah, it's mostly available through universities right now, but yeah, there's this one commercial outlet that regular people can use.
Yeah, and we loved it because we were trying to watch it from Brazil, and because it was exactly what we were looking for, and was amazing. So thank you for that. So could you, to start, could you tell us about something about your life and how you became interested in this state and military propaganda, violence and conflict? How did it get into your life?
Well, I've been at this for quite a while, all the way back to probably 2001, probably, it changed everything and it changed me. And I watched, as many Americans did, as this exquisite public relations machine went into motion and kind of ended up putting us in, and, especially when it came to Iraq. I, as a graduate student at Penn State University, was doing something completely different, but then got just completely absorbed into the anti-war movement. And my research kind of took that turn as well. And I started noticing as I was going through the sort of public relations push that was happening in the United States at the time, that sandwiched between all the news and what seemed to be like video news releases from the Pentagon itself were all these video games that featured scenes from the war to come, from, previous escapades in the Persian Gulf. And, they're reselling the video games along with reselling. And so I started looking really hard at the relationship between entertainment and this kind of military-induced public relations. And lo and behold, there's a whole history there. And it was kind of opening up as an avenue for doing Pentagon public relations, a little bit in the 90s, but then really opening up in 2003 in the sort of aftermath of. So that set me on this journey that ultimately led to Theaters of War and kind of cracking open this this little secret that everybody knew about to some degree, but nobody had any details about, which was the Pentagon and CIA's direct involvement in television in Hollywood. people knew that there was an office, but they had no idea the scope or the scale of it or the details of the kinds of script changes that these offices were making on a daily basis.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, the first televised war I remember, because I'm a little older than you, so I was in beginning of college in 1992, and I watched the Gulf through television. Imagine, I was in Brazil watching it live. I think it was CNN or something. And since then, I was like, whoa, well, and we're still there, right?
And we bombed every day. You know, the United States was bombing every day
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
90s all the way up until the second invasion. I mean, it didn't stop.
Yeah,
And you know, you probably noticed when watching that, it looked like a miniseries that was produced particularly for TV. And that was the first
exactly.
time that that had been done. So you have this guy, you know, this really porous boundary between the entertainment world on the one hand and the selling of conflict on the other.
Yeah, yeah. And then in 2007, you released a documentary, Militainment, about the militarization of the American popular culture. I took it from the, the website, examining how US news coverage has come to resemble Hollywood film, video games, and reality television in its glamorization of. So you began researching this whole thing. How did you get all that information? Uh, how did you do it? Because I wanted to do it too, but then I said, oh, fortunately you did it first, so I just have to read you and watch you.
Well, it was the time and place for that kind of research because yeah, military public relations was experimenting big time in getting into video games and reality TV and all these other venues. So, you know, part of what I was doing was just exploring in depth the whole production process of all of these various projects, you know. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, starting before, and there was a few military themed reality TV shows that, you know, the Army would do something here, the Air Force there, and it would be on MTV or somewhere else. And, you know, post and that just exploded. And so I was in a position before I made Militainment Inc., the movie, and also wrote the book by the same name, to really dig into that world, which was just, you know, it was kind of in its infancy at that point. It's fully developed and matured now, but you know, it was brand new, and so was the word militainment. I mean, people coined that word during that time to describe what was happening. I didn't coin that word, but it was floating around in the media sphere.
Oh, that's perfect. Because I was going to ask you that if you coined that term, because I said it's perfect. It's a perfect definition for the for the situation. So in Militainment Inc., you talk about war as a spectacle, the clean war. I'll just mention the subjects you touched in the document because my audience cannot watch it from Brazil. So I'll just say what you were talking about. So you're talking about war as a spectacle, the clean war, techno fetishism, demonization of the enemy, war in reality TV, sports, toys, and video games, and finally, dissenting voices. So 16 years after the release of the documentary Militainment Inc. and the book, the US is still involved in other countries. Could you tell our audience some of these topics, well, if not all, that are still relevant to understand international today?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at 2003 and the aftermath of that big PR push, and I mean, that was out in the open, and you know, about 2007 or 2008, the U.S. public kind of experienced fatigue on a grand scale, and so the story about what was happening over and really fell off the front page, and it was still happening. Obviously, it was
Mhm.
extending. You know, it was extended all the way to 2014 for, and we still have, you know, a few thousand soldiers there. But you know, it was just not on the public radar anymore because it had fallen out of the news cycle. So, you know, most of what I talked about in that book and in those films was about how to sell a conflict out in the open. But now I think it's fair to say that, you know, the U.S. involved in, you know, according to the Cost of War project at Brown University, in about 85 different countries, active military operations. And we don't really have a good sense, I'm talking about the public, in the United
Yeah.
States of where the military is conducting mainly drone operations and special forces operations around the world.
Mm.
And so, war has in large part gone invisible. And so it's another tactic is to, just not talk about it, not try to justify it, not speak about it directly. And that is the kind of public relations that's being fought against the U.S. public now. And it's very different.
Então, consegui postar aqui o comecinho da entrevista, mas a partir desse ponto a gente vai mencionar o nome de vários países, conflitos e umas palavrinhas que essa plataforma não gosta. Você consegue assistir a entrevista completa, que tem aproximadamente 1 hora, no Rumble Akashemoto ou no Telegrama Akashemotolândia. Acompanhe-nos por lá, que tem coisa bastante legal. Até mais!